Hello, once again, Kenny Jacobs from Bloomington, Illinois. Going to do another video today talking about current events as it relates to Bible prophecy. First thing I want to cover today has to do with a statement that Barack Hussein Obama made last night during the State of the Union address. And I can't believe he said this, and I'm hearing a few people calling him out on it on the news today, but not nearly as many as I would have thought. And the statement is, and this is right at the beginning of his speech, he said that the shadow of crisis is over and the State of the Union is strong. What world is he living in if he can honestly say the shadow of crisis is over? But the reality is, I don't think he ever is honest at any one point. So I'm sure he realizes that the shadow of crisis for normal civilians is certainly not over. But if you are the Muslim pawn of the New World Order global elites in the White House, then I guess things are going great. Everything's right on schedule, right to the plan. The shadow of crisis is over. I guess then that there's no threat of economic collapse. Of course, if you listened to his speech yesterday, you would think that the economy is doing just great. But economists would tell you different. The CIA is telling you different. The CIA and the FBI are planning for global unrest because it's just a matter of time before the economy does collapse. Or I guess there's no more threat of civil unrest in the nation. We've been having protests, violent protests all around, and demonstrations all around the country since last summer, and I'm sure that there's no threat of that happening anymore. Or war. No threat that we could be involved in war or be attacked by terrorists or have more disease like Ebola or who knows what coming through the open border from Mexico. No, there's no shadow of crisis anymore. It's over. It's gone. Unbelievable. And the fact of the matter is, crisis and scandal follow Obama everywhere he goes. And they want and need crisis. Remember Rahm Emanuel's famous statement that never let a good crisis go to waste, because it's an opportunity to do things that you could not do before. That's a very important statement because that's exactly what they think and what they believe, and it's exactly what they're up to. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Very interesting. I think there's four types of people in the United States right now as far as paying attention to what's going on with the government. Number one, there are people who are asleep and don't care. They don't pay any attention to this stuff. They live in their own little world and they really don't care. Two, there are those who they might be paying attention, but they're so beaten down and defeated, the fight's gone. And they just accept how it is. Three, there are those people who actually trust him and like him and believe him when he promises them free stuff, and they think that he has the answers. And four, there are those who see the truth and will never give in. And we know what's going on, and we will never go along with the New World Order agenda. I see that as the four main groups of people in the country right now. Now, interestingly enough, the government has a list, red, blue, and yellow lists, for when civil unrest happens and when martial law is instituted. And let's go back to my four categories here. I would say those on number one, those who are asleep and don't care, they would be on the yellow list. Let me just pull this up here real quick. They would be on the yellow list, though, and those are the people that the government considers not a threat. They'll go along with whatever they're told to do. and the government can they'll just tell them what to do, and they'll go right along with it. I'm actually pulled up an article here called, and I'll put this into the link in the description box. FEMA red blue list marked for termination. It says FEMA death camps on the red and blue list under martial law, and but the yellow list is people that are not a threat. They don't care what's going on, don't know what's going on, and they'll do whatever the government tells them to do. That's the people that I say who are asleep and don't care. Number two, those who are beaten down and defeated. Some of those may be on the yellow list, but some of those I think will be on the blue list as well. And the blue list are people that will be put in the camps, but they think they can re-educate to get to follow the New World Order. And I would say probably some on that list would certainly fall into that category. And I would say for sure some on the blue list are people that will not give in. And then there's, like I said, there's those who trust him, Obama, and they love his plans, and when he promises them free stuff, they think it's great, and they never call him out on any of the lies or the scandals, and they would definitely, again, be on the yellow list. No big deal. Government isn't concerned about you. And then for those who see the truth and know what's going on and will never give in to their agenda, that would be me, and people like me doing videos calling the government out on a daily basis on YouTube, as well as members of the Tea Party groups and things like that, and conservative groups, and people calling for their constitutional rights. Last week I did a video calling out 72 categories of people that the government says are a threat, that they're possible homeland security threats because of their beliefs, and it's basically people who refuse to go along with the corrupt agenda of the government, the New World Order. And those people are on the red list. And those people they'll be taken to the FEMA camp, but they'll be killed. And I know that sounds incredible. I know there's a lot of people, every time they hear that, they say that'll never happen in America. But mark my words, it's going to happen in America, and it's going to happen much sooner than you think. And you need to wake up, and you need to be really, really prepared. Because Barack Obama can give that speech and talk about how the shadow of crisis is over, and just move on, no big deal. Well, we've been trying to do whatever we're doing in Yemen, and Barack Hussein Obama has said that what's happening in Yemen is an example of how we're succeeding over there, and how, remember during his campaign, his second campaign, he said that Al-Qaeda was on the run, and we're winning the war on terror, and now Al-Qaeda's still over there, and there's some conflict going on right now, and the president's being held. The president of Yemen is actually being held right now captive. And we're sending more warships over there. Wasn't any mention of that last night, was there? So it is absolutely time to wake up, because the next crisis that Barack Hussein Obama creates could be the one that forever changes the world as we know it. The one that brings in martial law. Then those of us on the red and blue lists with reservations in a FEMA camp will start checking in. And even last night, after what happened in the midterm elections, Barack Hussein Obama was so defiant and arrogant, and there is no truth in him. He is of his father the devil, and there is no truth in him. He isn't going anywhere after 2016. He will probably be the last American president. He's showing his arrogance and his defiance, and his true colors are coming out like never before. But again, unfortunately, much of the world is just still too asleep to even notice or pay attention or care. So I'm going to pull up an article here about government plans and Rex 84. I've done other videos about this in the past, but it needs to be brought up again. This is out of Global Research. Rex 84, government silently positions for martial law as financial collapse arrives in America. It's coming. That's why you can't hardly watch TV at night anymore and not see things like survival food commercials. See those all the time. The U.S. government has been scheming on how to provide for continuity of government for many decades now. According to Peter Santilli, an informant who is an ex-Marine and worked on portions of the contingency plans, known as Rex 84, civil unrest will come after a financial collapse. The Readiness Exercise 1984, also known as Rex 84, outlines continuity of government wherein the U.S. Constitution is suspended. Martial law is declared and the U.S. military command take over state and local governments in order to ensure stabilization of our nation at any cost. Any American who is deemed a national security threat would be detained in an internment or FEMA camp. Stop right there for a minute. I just, again, mentioned it last week. I did a video. There's 72 categories of people that would be on that list who would immediately be detained in an internment camp. And when I did a quick count, I was over 30 of them. And many of you watching these videos, without a doubt, are on that list as well. It is coming. It is a real reality. It's going to happen. There's no stopping it. It says the author of Rex 84 was Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, National Security Council White House aides, and the National Security Council liaison to FEMA. Now keep in mind that after 9/11, FEMA became part of the Department of Homeland Security. Rex 84 is the plan. The triggers are a series of executive orders. It is the continuity of government under specific contingency strategies that are laid out in various operation guide manuals. Operation Garden Plot is a sub-program of Rex 84. It says twice before Rex 84 was implemented, during the LA riots and on 9/11, in these scenarios, only small portions of the entire set of documents were used. Within the series of contingency plans, implementation of them depends on the severity of the situation. We're going to have a situation very soon that will be so severe that they will implement that on a nationwide scale. They've been preparing for it for a long time. And I think 2015, early 2016 at the latest, would be about when it's going to happen. And when they suspend the Constitution, there will be no elections, and Barack Hussein Obama will stay on. And just pay close attention to what he says in his speeches now and how he acts, because he's so arrogant, and you can just see it that he has no intentions of leaving, or who knows? What's he going to do at the UN? Maybe he's going to leave and become the head of the UN, replace Ban Ki-moon. But we need to be awake, and we need to really be paying attention to what's going on right now, because I'm telling you, we are on the verge of this nation and this world changing in ways that you can't imagine, and it will never be the same. And what it will end up being is it'll lead right to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ. And that's why I do these videos, to show you that we are living in prophetic times, and the current events that you see on a daily basis line up with what Bible prophecy has to say. So with that, let's get into some news stories from today. First news story here, just out of Huffington Post. Another example of how Pope Francis is a political leader, not a Christian leader. Out of Latino Voices, a section of the Huffington Post, Pope Francis says, this is the headline, crossing into U.S. from Mexico would be a beautiful gesture. Let me reload that. There we go. Would be a beautiful gesture. Pope Francis told a group of reporters Monday that he doesn't plan to travel to Mexico this year, but next time he does visit, the Pope raised the possibility of walking across the U.S.-Mexico border to show support for immigrants, according to a report from the Spanish newswire EFE. To enter the United States from the border of Mexico would be a beautiful gesture of brotherhood and support for immigrants, Francis told reporters aboard the papal airplane returning to Rome from the Philippines. He added jokingly that he wouldn't be able to visit Mexico unless he had time to pay homage to the... Sorry guys, my Google keeps crashing. Did it again. Yeah, that's enough on that anyway. But, okay, first of all, the United States of America is a nation of immigrants, and we've never been against immigration, ever. We certainly, I think, as a nation, aren't real thrilled with all the illegal immigration and the amnesty program that's going on and the open borders. I think we have a problem with that. But anybody that wants to come here legally, I don't know anybody has a problem with that. And why Pope Francis is taking the side of the illegal immigrants, that's pretty amazing. And we as Americans ought to call him out on it and stand up to him about it. But again, he is a political, global agenda leader, not a Christian spiritual leader. Let's look at another important Pope Francis article, because this is talks about how the world is paying attention and listening to every word this guy says. It says, when Pope Francis talks, this is out of Newsday, when Pope Francis talks, the world listens. Forget E.F. Hutton, it's P.F., Pope Francis these days, who, when he talks, people listen. And then they get busy trying to figure out what it was he was really saying. Even non-Catholics are keen to study his words. So surprised and delighted are they to hear a pope say things that suggest to them a more enlightened view of the world, even if those views are attitudinal rather than tangible. Each time Francis speaks, his words are as shiny objects on a desert floor. We scramble to examine them, turning them over, looking for hidden meanings, holding them up to the light in search of codes and encryptions. Perhaps Francis finds this amusing. Then again, perhaps he is as shrewd as he seems to be guileless. He says what he means to say, and if people want to argue over the implications of what he says, well, so be it. Once he has said something, the light he sheds travels with great speed. Now, then they go in and talk about more controversial things that Pope Francis is up to. But I just want to point out, again, that the world is embracing Pope Francis. And for what this sentence right here says, that the world loves this guy, even non-Catholics. They're so surprised and delighted to hear the Pope say things that suggest to them a more enlightened view of the world. In other words, Pope Francis likes to call out fundamental Christians, say we're sick, say we're crazy, that, the Word of God that's not, you can't just go by that. And God, he can't do everything, doesn't have a magic wand. And even atheists can be saved, and all that stuff. The Pope, that he says, and the world loves it. And that phrase, enlightened, that's what the whole New Age movement, one world religion, the global religion that's coming, will be based on. It'll be all about, and Pope Francis is the head of that. He's certainly pulling it together. And they said, even if those views are attitudinal rather than tangible, well, let me put it this way. His views are going to become much more tangible soon. Let's look at Revelation 13:11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. That's Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 through 17, talking about the false prophet, who will also be the Antichrist. And the two will work together on the one world religion and the one world government. And the false prophet will force the entire world to worship the beast and accept his mark, and it will be part of the mark will be an economic system, a monetary system. Without the mark, you can't buy or sell. Pope Francis is all about income inequality, taking care of the poor, and he wants a radical new economic system. He said that. That's what he wants. And eventually, on God's timing, that's what he's going to have. So again, Barack Hussein Obama and Pope Francis working feverishly together to bring on the New World Order. And contrary to what Barack Obama said last night, we're just one major crisis away from it happening. Let's move on. Times of Israel. Netanyahu blames Palestinian leadership for Tel Aviv bus attack. There's another terrorist attack. Guy gets on a bus, Palestinian gets on a bus, starts stabbing Israelis last night. So, more unrest, and the fire is being fanned in the Mideast again. This is out of Haaretz.com. I've seen it in Times of Israel as well. Netanyahu, Lieberman, and Bennett blame Abbas for Tel Aviv bus attack. Keep in mind that Netanyahu, Lieberman, and Bennett may be voted out of office in March for people who want a two-state solution and think that they can bring on peace with the Palestinians, and it's not going to happen. Even if they give up all the land, it's not going to happen. Right-wing leaders say Palestinian incitement behind attack. Netanyahu, the same terror tries to hurt us in Paris, Brussels, and everywhere. Herzog claims Israeli citizens lack security nationwide. Benjamin Netanyahu blamed the Palestinian Authority for Wednesday's stabbing attack on a Tel Aviv bus, saying the attack was a direct result of the Palestinian Authority's venomous incitement against the Jews in their state. The same terror tries to hurt us in Paris, Brussels, and everywhere. Hamas, Abbas's partners in unity government, hurried to welcome this act, the same Hamas that announced it will sue Israel in the ICC, Netanyahu added. Abbas is responsible for both the dangerous incitement and the Hague Tribunal. Lieberman, also referring to recent riots where about 200 young men burned tires and threw them at police, says it doesn't matter to them if it's Judea and Samaria, the Negev, the Galilee, Tel Aviv, or Jerusalem. It's all part of the same branch which aims to eliminate the Jewish state, Lieberman added. Naftali Bennett echoed Lieberman's statements, placing responsibility for the Tel Aviv bus stabbing on Abbas. Too, the man responsible for the Tel Aviv attack is the same person marching with world leaders in Paris last week, Bennett said. When Abbas incites day and night against the Jews on television, when he glorifies and gives cash prizes to murderers of Jews, Bennett added, he makes himself the dealer of knives, and the terrorists are just his agents. But like I said, it's amazing how it looks like these guys could possibly be voted out of office in Israel in March. The ones who are fighting for the safety and security of Israel, the ones who do not want to give up the land for peace, the ones who know that Abbas, the Palestinians, cannot be trusted. And how ironic and hypocritical is it that France did not want Benjamin Netanyahu to be at the march because he would incite issues, and right in the front row was Mahmoud Abbas marching against terrorism. Unbelievable. All right, speaking of Hamas, here's a news story out of Times of Israel today. Hamas leaders praise Tel Aviv stabbing as heroic. Again, they just got done marching for peace in Paris against terrorism. The following week, Hamas leaders praised Tel Aviv stabbing as heroic. Cartoon depicting bloodied knife colored as the Palestinian flag zooms around the internet. Amazing. Don't slander the prophet of Islam. Don't make a cartoon about Muhammad, or there will be hell to pay. But we can glorify terrorism all we want through cartoons. We can slander and kill innocent Christians and Jews. We can say that Jesus isn't the Son of God. We have in our Quran that Jesus, Isa in their Bible, in their satanic Quran, they claim that Jesus is going to come back and actually execute Christians, say that he is not the Son of God and that he did not die on a cross, and that we are wrong and he converted to Islam. But my gosh, if somebody around the world says one bad thing about the Prophet Muhammad, there's death and destruction. Again, hypocrisy, double standards. and the world is turning against Israel and supporting these terrorists. And then they wonder why there's no peace and security around the world. Is there any wonder why 1 Thessalonians 5:3 says, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction will come upon them? And that's where we're at right now. Hamas leaders on Wednesday took to social media to praise a stabbing attack in Tel Aviv that morning, expressing hopes that similar attacks will follow. And again, we're trying to negotiate a two-state solution in peace with these people. 3 weeks after an instructional video on stabbing, attributed to Hamas, emerged online, movement members gleefully extolled the bus assault, heralding it as a sign of things to come. Wake up, people. Again, Barack Obama seems to think the shadow of crisis is over, but it's just beginning. Jesus said it's going to get so bad that if he didn't shorten the days, no flesh would be saved. A mourning of resistance, and it means mourning like is it the day, not mourning like sorrow. A mourning of resistance, a mourning for the nation, wrote Hamas spokesman. I'm not going to try to say his name. Above a photo of a black-handled combat knife lying on the pavement, encircled by police tape. Gaza-based Hamas official praised the act on Facebook as extraordinary and called for more acts of resistance, either by individuals or groups. Ah, boy. Hamas's political bureau called the attack heroic and brave, adding that it is the natural response to the crimes of the occupation and its terror against our people. In other words, just for existing and living in your land that God gave you, that justifies us going onto buses and stabbing people. It's a natural response. Which, oddly enough, basically that's why Pope Francis said a few days ago that, if you criticize my mom, you're going to get punched in the face. Saying that this type of thing is justified if you criticize somebody's religion. And remember, Barack Hussein Obama himself said, the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet of Islam. Again, Psalm 83 verse 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. You cannot make peace with people who do not recognize your right to exist, have it in their charter that they're going to annihilate you, and they call for annihilating you on a weekly basis. They already live side by side. If you want to draw a borderline and call one Palestine and one Israel, it's not going to change anything. They're not going to get along. There's not going to be peace. There's going to be war and destruction all the way up until Jesus comes back to set up his government. And again, all I can say is people need to wake up. And you need to make sure you're ready. Time is getting so short. All right, let's look at Erdogan, the leader of Turkey. Because again, it's very interesting. Turkey's a NATO nation, and they're getting more and more involved in supporting Islam and their movement and condemning Israel. And Erdogan is gaining power in the Middle East, and he's a very dangerous guy. This is out of, let's see here. Let's go to, let's go to Yahoo News. This is out of Yahoo News. Erdogan urges Islamic unity against modern Lawrences. Turkish President Erdogan on Wednesday called on Muslim states to speak with one voice against terrorism and racism, positioning himself once again as a key leader of the Islamic world. Now, again, he's like Obama. He says one thing, does another. He's supporting terrorism and racism, and he's constantly making racist, anti-Semitic statements against Israel and the Jews. And he's harboring terrorists. And Iran is shipping stuff through them. It's crazy what's going on. But then he comes out and says that the Muslim states need to unite as one voice against terrorism and racism. Addressing a meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in Istanbul, Erdogan said Islamic states had to defeat the successors of the iconic British officer Lawrence of Arabia, who were seeking to disrupt the Middle East. He said acts of terrorism never bind the Muslims nor Islamic countries, and called on the Muslim world to engage in self-criticism to define a united route in order to address the challenges. When the Muslim world remains silent and every sect stands behind their own sympathizers, others are stepping in. Terrorists and modern Lawrences, he said. British officer T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, helped Arab leaders fight a guerrilla insurgency against the forces of the Ottoman Empire in the desert during World War I. Modern Turkey was built on the ruins of the empire. Erdogan has in the past raised up the ghost of Lawrence as a symbol of Western meddling in the Middle East. We may be speaking different languages, we may be coming from different geographies, and we may have different ethnic roots, he said, but we must put aside all differences among us in the face of terrorism and racism. Erdogan lashed out at the Islamic State jihadists who have captured large swaths of Iraq and Syria right up to the Turkish border, which he said was killing Muslims on the pretext of Islam. So here we go again. Muslim nations saying they're against terrorism when they're really not, when they are all against Israel and the Jewish people, yet they're wanting to come together in this coalition, Daniel 9:27, covenant with many, in the guise of fighting radical terrorism. I'm telling you, this is a huge year. I just really have the feeling that the covenant will be confirmed this year, and the final 7-year period of time will begin. And there's just it's coming together in so many areas. And again, there could be some big news out of this summit that Barack Obama is hosting in February about radical violent extremists. Again, his idea of a radical violent extremist and our idea of a radical violent extremist, probably not the same thing. All right, let's, speaking of that, let's go to another interesting article. I'm sure Barack Hussein Obama loves this one. The United States Congress has invited Benjamin Netanyahu to speak before a joint session of Congress. I love it. Where's that at? Well, I hope I can find the article now. I thought I had it on Google, and I don't know what happened to it. Oh, here it is. Okay, Netanyahu to address Congress. This is out of here it is, out of Fox News. Boehner invites Netanyahu to address Congress on Iran after Obama veto threat. I love that. Obama said last night, if you bring up a bill for sanctions against Iran, I'm going to veto it. Obama's doing everything he can, it seems, to allow Iran to continue working on their nuclear weapons. House Speaker John Boehner announced Wednesday he is inviting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address Congress next month about the threat from Iran in a sharp rebuke to President Obama. Such invitations typically are coordinated with the White House and State Department, but this one was not. The House Speaker's office said Netanyahu will be invited to speak February 11th before a joint session of Congress. The invitation comes as lawmakers weigh legislation supported by Republicans and some Democrats to tee up more sanctions against Iran in case negotiations fail to curtail the country's nuclear enrichment program. Obama vowed Tuesday during a State of the Union address to veto any such legislation, but Boehner signaled he wants Netanyahu to explain the stakes of the debate as he pledged to press ahead with the legislation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is a great friend of our country, and this invitation carries with it our unwavering commitment to the security and well-being of his people, Boehner said in a statement. In this time of challenge, I am asking the Prime Minister to address Congress on the grave threats radical Islam and Iran pose to our society and way of life. Interesting. He even used the phrase radical Islam, John Boehner did, but I never hear Barack Obama use that phrase. And I wonder if Barack Obama will even find time to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes over to speak. Boehner told members of the GOP House conference on Wednesday morning the president warned us not to move ahead with sanctions on Iran, a state sponsor of terror. His exact message to us was, "Hold your fire." He expects us to stand idly by and do nothing while he cuts a bad deal with Iran. 2 words, hell no. He said, "Let's send a clear message to the White House and the world about our commitment to Israel and our allies." Well, I'll tell you what, the only chance our nation has is to stand behind Israel. And if Barack Obama has his way, we won't. And I'm telling you, our nation's future depends on it. Very interesting. But I, for one, say we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, pray for Israel, pray for Benjamin Netanyahu. Things are moving fast, and we are coming down to the end. So it's just incredible. 2 more news stories I want to cover. And then this other article I kind of touched on, but I'll put this link. Our Arab cartoonist glorifies Tel Aviv knife attack. This one has a picture of the attack, or a picture of the cartoon, and a little more detail about it. So I'll put that in the link, but I won't read it. But here's an interesting article. Russia says America wants to take over the world. Keep in mind that Russia, Turkey, and Iran are going to attack Israel. The Gog and Magog war of Ezekiel 38 and 39. Vladimir Putin's been getting more aggressive. He's more powerful in the world. Seen, in fact, last poll I saw, he was listed as the world's most powerful man. Obama became number 2. Pope Francis is number 4. Russia says America wants to take over the world. This is how the Arut Sheva. Russian FM responds to Obama's State of the Union, saying he is looking for confrontation as fallout from Ukraine and Syria deepens. Russia on Wednesday responded disparagingly to U.S. President Barack Obama's annual State of the Union address, claiming it showed that the United States wanted to dominate world affairs. Americans have set a course for confrontation, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told reporters. Obama's address yesterday shows that there is just one thing at the heart of their philosophy. We are number one, and the rest should acknowledge that, he opined in televised remarks. This is a bit out of date and does not correspond to modern reality. It's an interesting statement. Russia says Obama is saying we're number one and the rest should acknowledge that, but then he also says this is a bit out of date and does not correspond to modern reality. It's another way of saying that is you're not number one. That's not reality. America is no longer respected around the world, primarily because of what Barack Obama's done in the last 6 years. And he's weakened our military, and the world knows it. It shows that the United States wants to dominate the world, he said, adding that being first among equals was not enough for Washington. And then he goes on and talks about some other stuff that's going on. But the point of that is confrontation between Russia and the United States certainly could be on the horizon. Without a doubt, there's going to be confrontation between Russia and Israel. And assuming we're still allies with Israel at that time, will we stand up and fight for Israel or not? If we do not, well, let's just go to Zechariah chapter 12 real quick. This chapter, Zechariah chapter 12, is pretty much the daily news anymore. Zechariah 12:2. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling, and all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. I believe God's word means exactly what it says. And when it says all the people of the earth be gathered together against it, if the United States is even still around, they will be included in all the people gathered against Jerusalem. And what does God promise? Well, in verse 9 of Zechariah 12, it says, And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. We cannot, as a nation, fight God and survive. So, with that being said, and with Russia talking about confrontation with America the day after Barack Obama's speech, well, look what happened here. Let me pull this up. Russian spy ship in Havana on eve of U.S.-Cuba talks. This is out of Yahoo News. And main thing I want to say to that is thank you, Pope Francis. Thank you for getting involved in the politics of the United States and Cuba and brokering this deal that I'm not sure I really understand why it's important or how it's going to help America one iota. But now, because of that, we have a Russian ship sitting in Havana. It says a Russian intelligence warship docked in Havana on Tuesday, a day before the start of historic U.S.-Cuba talks aimed at normalizing diplomatic relations. There was nothing stealthy about the arrival, which is moored at Pier Old Havana, where cruise ships often dock, but the visit was not officially announced by Cuban authorities. And of course, U.S. officials in Washington played down the presence of the Russian vessel, saying it was perfectly legal and not at all out of the ordinary. It's not unusual. Move along, nothing to see here. Because as Barack Hussein Obama said, the shadow of crisis is past. The world's just a great place now. Safe, secure, no problems. It is time to wake up. We are living on borrowed time. The Bible prophecies are coming to pass at an alarming rate. If you're not ready, it is time to make sure you are. The Bible says, all who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Jesus Christ himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. He is the only option. He's the only hope. Being a Muslim, Islam, Allah, Muhammad can't save you. Hinduism, Buddhism, New World Order, New Age movement, and atheism as well, by the way. I know Pope Francis seems to think that if you're an atheist, you'll still be saved. But that's not what the Bible says. Jesus Christ loves you. He died for you. He came to save you. And he still will if you call out to him. Again, all who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Repent of your sin and turn to him while you still can. We are running out of time. It is incredible what's going on. I got a little bit of time left. I've done much longer videos than this one, so let's just read Psalm 27 real quick. Psalm of David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, come upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And now shall mine head be lifted above mine enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me, and answer me. When thou saidst, seek ye my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face, Lord, will I seek. Hide not thy face far from me, put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help, leave me not, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path, because of mine enemies. Deliver me not over unto the will of mine enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as breathe out cruelty. I had fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord, and in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. This is the time to cling to the Lord and be of good courage. He will deliver us. He will protect us. And even if you were to face martyrdom and death, you would be immediately before the throne of God and with Jesus for an eternity. The world is getting so dangerous and so wicked. Evil is, like Matthew said, because iniquity abounds, the love of many will wax cold. Iniquity certainly abounds now. But there is hope in Jesus Christ. He promised that He would come back for us, and He would take us to the Father's house in John 14:2 and 3. In His Father's house are many mansions, and He's going to come back and get us. And I always like to kind of quote this verse as a word of encouragement. Revelation chapter 3, verse 10, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. He's coming, and He's coming soon. He told us the signs to look for, and they're all here. Make sure you're ready, and keep looking up. God bless everyone.